someone said something that was very interesting, but there's a big difference between pride and being proud. Like in private, we can be proud of our works. But if you're prideful, then it's a sin. Because pride essentially says that we're better than other people, which is not good. And it's actually a cardinal sin. And so the cardinal virtue that we should be practicing is humility. Being meek, humbling yourself. You know, oftentimes we think we're better than other people. That's the temptation. I'm better than you because X, Y, and Z. And because of that, you have little to no value, which is wrong. I mean, humble yourself to people. Try to understand them. Why do they do what they do? You know, I was talking to a Mormon, and I was just asking him about Mormon theology. I said very little about Catholic church teaching. I was just asking him about various different doctrines. And it was more me asking genuinely, like being interested in the teachings of the Mormon Church. Not, you're wrong, you're stupid. Because I completely disagree with Mormon theology. But it's still good to learn about this stuff. And then so eventually he started asking me about, Catholic church teaching. And I told him all about that, etc., etc. And then I met 2 Mormon missionaries. So I was going for a walk. They stopped and they said, "Hey, you need anything to pray for?" And I had a conversation with them. They're like, "What should we? You got any words of wisdom?" And I said, look into early church history, because early church history, I mean, it's Catholic. The early church was Catholic. They all wrote about Mary. They all wrote about the Eucharist. They all wrote about bishops. They all wrote about priests. They all wrote about these Catholic doctrines. And so, even papal supremacy. And so they all wrote about these Catholic doctrines. And it's a good thing, There's a lot of a small sect of people that, attack the Pope. And what we need to realize is that the Pope is the first among equals. So once you're a bishop, you are essentially one of the highest positions in the church. And then cardinals, they get a smaller degree of honor, a little more honor than bishops. And then essentially the Pope, he's the first among equals. And so when the Pope is with other cardinals, other bishops, he's the first among equals, which means it's a term that was adopted from the Roman Emperor because they needed titles to basically explain that this person is a king, but he's not a king, because the Romans hated the kings. And so they came with the title first among equals, which means if you're in a group of people, someone's first among equals, they are the leader. They are first. And so what they say has a little more honor than other people. It'd be like the chairperson at a board meeting. They're the leader. And you need a leader. Because if you don't, it's chaos. You have no one to decide disputes. I mean, just look at the Orthodox Church. It's a fucking disaster. It's a shithole what they got going on. There's no clear set order of doctrine. And what they'll say is that what the Catholic Church is teaching after the schism, they fell on off from the faith. They teach these these weird doctrines. And it's like, that's not true. The Orthodox, they believe in 7 councils. The first 7 councils. They haven't called a council since 1054 because they can't call a council. There's no centrality within the religion itself. It's a bunch of autocephalous churches, and then maybe they meet up with other Orthodox bishops, and then maybe they might agree, maybe they won't. And it's highly based on your country. So there's the Greek, that's why they call it the Greek Orthodox Church, because they put the nation and their ethnic background before their doctrine, Orthodox, as a way to what they refer to themselves. And it's another reason why they're wrong. Because you look at the Russian Orthodox Church. So they are Russian first, they are Orthodox second, and then they are part of the church. Whereas the Catholic means universal, a whole. We're talking about the whole church here. The universal church. Because there are churches in Africa, there are churches in America, there are churches in Russia, there are churches in Germany. The whole world. It's the universal whole church. Now there are people that break off of it. For example, the latest, the SPX. They break off. It's what we refer to as schism. Is when they stop believing in doctrine from the Catholic Church. Then they are in schism. Then they become heretics. Well, knowledge for y'all. And heretics mean when you're baptized, you believe the Catholic Church and its teachings. And heretic, essentially, they stop believing those doctrines. Some of the doctrines. And that's what heresy is. This is a heresy when it means they are not following what the Catholic Church teaches. That's heresy. And I saw some Protestants using the word heresy. And I'm like, you fucking idiot. Like, you're a fucking idiot. You're retarded. Only the Catholic Church can use heresy. Only they can designate what doctrines are true and what doctrines are heretical. Because there's no governing body for fucking Protestants. Martin Luther was a fucking retard, you know? With that being said, the church in the 1500s was just atrocious. With that being said, I think Rome was sacked during like the 1500s ever. For good fucking reason. Because the clergy were engaged with scandals. They were having mistresses, the popes, etc. With that being said, the people in the church can be bad, but the church is not wrong about its doctrine and its teachings. But yeah, I wouldn't, again, I do think it's wrong to start your own thing. But honestly, I there's some Protestants I love. I can't theologically assent to it. Because it's like, how do I know what Scripture is? How do I know what the Bible is? Is there 66 books? Is there 73? And when you look into this, there's a quote from a cardinal. He basically said, to look into history, like, means ceasing to be Protestant. And so if Jesus really did establish a church, and he really did say that this church would never cease, and this church is Catholic. And so he built the church on Peter. Peter's body is under the Vatican, which is the headquarters of the Catholic Church. Yada, yada, yada. Be Catholic.